Hello everyone, this is Jed Shlackman. I'm a holistic counselor and energy healer. For today's video, I'll be speaking about the topic of criticism, in particular the context of criticism related to shame, how we process shame or handle our shame, and how we may go to one extreme or another, sometimes into a narcissistic extreme, and other times into kind of a more people-pleasing or appeasing type of extreme. It's really a challenge for any of us to be in more of a balanced, centered state to process criticism, and this is what I'd like to explore here so that we can be a little bit more mindful of this and perhaps handle and process criticism in our lives in a more healthy and constructive way. If we think about the development of our sense of self, our identity, our self-confidence, it begins from the moment we're born, or you could argue that it starts even before that. But at least from the time that we're an infant, we're interacting with our caregivers and other people around us and using that feedback to develop our sense of self, how we feel about ourselves, our sense of self-efficacy, self-worth, our sense of confidence in our abilities, whether we believe we're attractive or intelligent. All of these things are being continually refined over time. We often grow up in an environment where we're getting some type of critical or negative feedback about ourselves, about our behavior and actions, etc. So when that happens, we may internalize that criticism. So if we have a parent who's there telling us that we're stupid, that we're ugly, that we're helpless or hopeless, then part of our consciousness might attach to that belief, holding that belief about ourselves, in part because we really want to kind of please that attachment figure or authority figure. We want to see them as an authority. We want to look up to them, and in order to look up to them, we have to accept or embrace what they're telling us. So that's part of why people do receive and embrace those negative beliefs about themselves, because it's actually done with a positive intention in relation to that relationship with the attachment figure or to other important people in our lives. At the same time, there's also some other part of your consciousness that doesn't believe the negative feedback or criticism, a part of you that sees yourself in a more positive way, that kind of wants to reject or rebel against the criticism. So you might actually go out of your way, in a sense, to disprove that criticism, to prove that the opposite is true. So if you're a child, that might appear as trying extra hard to look attractive, to excel in school, to excel in sports activities. So there's a variety of ways where you might try to prove your worth in contrast to what someone else might have told you about your value in some way. So you could either put yourself down or go in the opposite direction and try to excel in things as a reaction to the messages you were given, to criticism that you received. So you'll see people exhibiting both ends of that spectrum, people who put themselves down, who lack motivation, who lack initiative, who tell themselves they're going to fail at something before they even try it. But you'll also see people who exhibit the opposite pattern of being very motivated, very driven, very determined to show that they are good at whatever endeavor they're pursuing. Now, we can consider the context of narcissism, where there are people who will try to deny anything negative that's said about them. They don't accept any feedback or criticism unless it's positive, unless it's painting them in a desirable light. So in that case, a person, no matter how valid your criticism or feedback might be, they'll be in denial about it. They'll completely deflect or ignore it. They won't really try to process it to see what part of it might be true or valid. So they're not really using that feedback for their benefit. They're just painting this picture of themselves as wonderful in whatever way. They might see themselves as talented, intelligent, beautiful, etc., and maintain denial of the value of other people's opinions, especially if those opinions are not very flattering to them. So you can see that pattern present very often, while you may also see a pattern of people who are overly sensitive to what other people think or say, who really take those external forms of feedback as completely true or valid, so they don't question what other people are telling them. They don't consider that other people's opinions or views about them are not really always objective or always valid. So we don't want to completely reject what other people are saying about us, but we also don't want to uncritically or without any filter embrace and accept as true and valid what other people are saying. We want to find a balance in between there, where we can be kind of centered and observe that criticism or feedback and realistically identify what part of it is valid, what part of that is useful, and what part of it we can toss aside in a sense and see that it's not truly valid. It might be someone else just trying to put us down or just trying to inflate themselves at our expense. There's many different reasons why people might provide criticism to us. Some of it is actually useful and valid for us, and some of it isn't. Often for people that are overly sensitive or overly inclined to put themselves down or look at themselves negatively based on external feedback, those people are told that what other people say about you isn't really a reflection of you, it's a reflection of that other person who's speaking about you. And in a way, that's a half-truth. It's a reflection of what is valuable to them, to their subjective perception, to their biases or prejudices, and so on. But at the same time, it might have some valid information or feedback for you to help see yourself in a more fuller, complete way, since we don't really have a full picture of ourselves. We can use other people's feedback or perceptions to give us a more full picture of ourselves. We can take those into account in combination with our own view of ourselves to refine how we see and understand ourselves. So we don't need to completely reject what other people are saying. We also don't want to just blindly accept it. So be aware of the half-truths that we're often told. Sometimes it's told to us with the intention to benefit or uplift us. So if we are overly critical of ourselves, if we're overly sensitive to other people's criticisms or negative comments about us, it might seem useful to just reject, to not pay attention to anything other people say, and to completely define yourself on your own terms. But that may end up leading to you not heeding some useful input that people around you might have. So you'll need to kind of shift back at some point toward more of a balance with that, a balance of your own self-definition versus using some of the input from other people. In terms of our personalities, some of us, based upon how we've learned to handle criticism or feedback, things that triggered some form of shame or embarrassment, we may gravitate toward the narcissistic polarization or extreme, where we decide to overly inflate our sense of self or self-worth and to completely push aside any criticisms. We might also go to the opposite extreme of putting ourselves down constantly, thinking somehow that will appease or please other people. So in either sense, we're trying to get a positive result through our polarized way of reacting. But in the long term, for our own health and well-being, for our own ability to function optimally here in our human experience, it would be wise to bring ourselves more toward the center or balance, and in that sense not be overly sensitive to other people's critiques or comments, but not be overly dismissive either. So if you're dealing with any of these patterns in your life, if you notice that you tend to have insecurity and shame, and you tend to try to compensate for that in one of these patterns or another, just become aware of it. That's the first step. And then work on releasing whatever shame or insecurities you've built up, connecting with a deeper sense of your self-worth, perhaps just appreciating that you're a unique human being with a unique life experience, that you are here for a purpose, you are part of existence, part of the Creator's grand design and infinite self-expression. So you're inherently valuable, you have inherent worth, no matter what has happened so far in your human life path, no matter what deficits or weaknesses you might perceive you have, no matter how you might compare with other people. Just to remember your own unique worth, your own unique identity has its value. You don't have to compare yourself too much to other people. And when you come into that state of self-acceptance, feeling okay with yourself regardless of all these different variables, then it becomes easier to look at any criticism without trying to run away from it or without trying to appease the people who are providing that criticism. I know this is somewhat of a complex and nuanced topic, so it can take time to reflect on things, to process how we react to criticism, noticing the emotions that are present. So what are you actually feeling emotionally, physically, when someone says something critical about you? Is your body tightening up? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling embarrassed? Are you feeling ashamed? Is it reminding you of some past experience you had where someone else in your life was being critical toward you? These are all things you can observe and tune into as you reflect on this, using it as an opportunity to release those emotions or feelings that arise, to let them pass through, and to come back into a state of balance where you feel more content or more secure within yourself. For those that are looking for additional support, I invite you to visit my website, which is phinsights.com. You'll find my contact information there if you wanted to message or call me. And you'll also find many different resources to educate yourself about holistic health topics. For now, I would like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.